Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, heck, we're even on TikTok. We're excited to engage with you. We hope you'll join us moving forward.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Market Mindset. Andrew and Austin here. How's it going today, Austin?
Doing great, Andrew. How about yourself?
All is well. We're getting ready for an interesting week ahead. And just to kind of let people know, we're getting into the Christmas season here. So we're going to be on, but probably a little bit less scattered, a lot less formal, unless there's some like really driving news that we want to get out there. We anticipate things being a bit slower as far as news. But that ties into something very interesting. And every once in a while, I'll jump on here and say, hey, check out a video. Check out the video, not to promote my own videos or whatever, but it's just whenever someone gives some information away that I think is really useful, and it's not mine, it's not my opinion. It's the one with Steve Palmer from Alpha North X hedge funds. We put that out, I think it was just on the weekend or on Friday. Check that out because, around the 4-minute, 40 seconds to 5-minute, 20 in there, around there, he talks about seasonality of stock plays, especially in the micro, like venture cap, TSX Venture Exchange. So he gives away a lot of great information and a lot of useful tidbits in regards to seasonality of play. So for trades, we don't do a lot of trading, but we're going to pay attention to it this year. The seasonality of stocks, as well as with tax loss selling. And in particular this year with there being a big run up in some companies and then a pullback lately with a lot of tax loss selling. There's a lot of companies, a lot of people that would have had some wins in tech or in something else, or say even crypto. And they'll take some of the loss they would have taken on some of the mining stories. And some of these mining stories, it isn't a loss because of anything other than they're also annoyed that the assay results aren't in yet. So yeah. There's a lot of that, and that's fine. But what's interesting is that his position is, and check out the video, that the 2 weeks after, so basically starting Wednesday, the tax loss season is basically done. Everyone's finished doing it, and then there's a bump in that 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks, and even the first couple months, it's interesting what he has to say. So check out the video, and that's CFA Steve Palmer, ranked hedge fund. I mean, it's one I think. The 3-year came second in the 1 year and I think third in the 5-year return. Yeah. So tons of awards, tons of accolades in the space. A great interview, very smart guy. So I like to promote things like that because it's someone who can speak specifically today, who's licensed about stock price, where things are going. Anyways, check him out. It's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of breakdown of how this works and the expected bumps that you can see. So we'll be paying attention to it over the next few weeks, kind of pick a few that we like, see some stocks that we think have been kind of hammered out over the last few weeks, a lot of tax loss selling happening with them, and see if they do start to get this bump as we head into the new year.
Yeah, we might try to put something together as well. Like I'd be talking to a bunch of different people. So if we can get something together pretty quick here and assorted, we'll put something out either out live or we'll do a video and we'll get it out quick as we can. That speaks directly to this because it's an interesting opportunity. And if nothing else, even if someone just wants to kind of play along and look over the next 2 weeks and going into January and go, okay, I've seen a couple of these venture cap stocks that have pulled back and maybe it was tax loss selling. If I had bought at this price, did it go up? So I think it'll be a fun game. It'll be a fun experiment. We're certainly going to test it out and see. And if we can get together and get some of these people together in a hurry, we'll do either a live stream or we'll put some sort of video out together, but we're working on that right away.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. It'll be interesting to see as well to, kind of like a little, like you said, a little bit of a game to kind of analyze and say, okay, here's maybe where there's some real opportunity to get a quick little bump on some great plays. Like you said, not because that there's been any issues with the actual stock themselves, but just because people are needing to offset some wins in their portfolio with a little bit of a drop off.
Yeah. And let's just get this out of the way again. I mentioned it very briefly, like Kinross Gold buying Great Bear Resources. And I mentioned it again for a couple of different reasons, and not to pat our own backs. That yes, I had worked with Great Bear early on. I guess some of the reason why I got a little bit of attention was because we were a little bit late to it. I consider it late to it at $1.89. That's when I bought into it, and we started doing some work with them, which was great. I wrote a bunch of articles. I wasn't doing as many videos back then, but certainly putting articles out. And I know it was around the $5 or $6 range where I remember it was, I wrote an article saying, listen, it's not even close to being done. And I remember thinking, oh, this is kind of gutsy, Andrew. Right? I mean, it's had a bit of a run up, and it had pulled back a little bit. And I remember thinking, well, no, I wouldn't necessarily sell it yet. So, it was, a lot of people would have said that's not too risky a play, but it worked out. Everything went really well. We kind of stopped talking about it last year, like when it hit $14, $15. And certainly we weren't working with them any longer. So to us, it was a big win. But of course they got their, the offering price is 29. So if you'd held in for the next year, you would have got another double. And I bring it up because I do know, I have friends that have owned it from the start. So this can happen. Now this can happen, I guess. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And I don't know exactly the amount of money they put in at the beginning, but if they put $5,000 or $10,000 in, you can imagine what that works out to be at a $29 price, because they would have put in 80 cents or something around that, somewhere around those numbers. So these things can happen. They definitely can happen. And this isn't even a huge run of a market yet. So let's see, that kind of impetus or kind of that news can really help get the market going, especially in mining, especially when we head into January, February, which becomes a big season of the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. We're going into PDAC, a lot of the shows out here where people start paying a lot more attention to the mining sector. And hopefully it'll start to kickstart a lot more interest. We're getting through that sell-off. And once again, gold, I mean, it's that fiat play. I mean, it's along with crypto, it's critical for people to make sure as we're entering into this, I mean, it's massive. I mean, some people say it's transitory inflation. It's definitely not. It's here to stay for a while. If anyone, I can't see how you'd make the argument logically or reasonably. That doesn't mean that people aren't, but you have to remember, like if I'm Jim Cramer, say, and he's fun, like he's a lot of fun, but if you're Jim Cramer, your job is to promote the market. And that's what you're on there for. You're not a newsletter writer. You're not picking stocks anymore. You're not a fund manager. You're not doing that. You're there to support the market. And make no mistake, they're pay to play. Like you can get on CNN and CNBC if you pay them. You can be an expert on there. That's how it works. It isn't news like we found, whatever. You can just pay them and you can get on these shows. So that's the way it works. And people kind of criticize smaller newsletter writers because they go, oh, it's just a paid client. You're just chatting them up. Well, in my case, if I like a company a lot and I've been buying their shares and I can convince them to work with me and also pay, of course I would. It's very different than if I just say, I'll put anyone on, just pay me, I don't care, and I'll promote you. That's not good. That doesn't help anyone in any way. And I'm not suggesting they completely do that, but that's kind of the model. And they're there to make sure that their advertisers do well. And, whether it's Vanguard and State Street and BlackRock or Pfizer is a number one ad promoter on all of these things. You got to think, all right, don't expect too much bad news from your main sponsors.
Yeah, well, and even I saw Jim Cramer was going on last week about how the U.S. economy's never been stronger and it's in such a great place. And I was just thinking, like, is this guy for real? Like, does he live in the reality? Because I'm sure if you talk to your average American, your average middle-class American, they do not think the economy's in a good place. I saw recent polling data out of the U.S. that the current highest rated issue politically in the U.S. is the economy. About 38% of Americans think that the economy is the number one issue. And only 27% of Americans have confidence in the current administration to handle the economy. So I don't think the average American thinks that the economy is doing as well as Jim Cramer does. But
no, but that's his job. I mean, his job is to try to promote as much as he can. And he's got a tough job ahead of him because there is no confidence. And that's, you're trying to make the case that the economy is going so high up when you're pumping trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars into it. If you don't get a lift, you're in trouble. But no, I mean, anybody who's really serious out there, I like Real Vision. I think they do great work. Amongst others, but real people that are looking at inflation and looking at the economy, they know what's up. And unfortunately, on most media, it's owned by the left, and it's all politicized. And it's unfortunate because it should just be, listen, everyone, let's solve this together. Put away the politics. Just admit that there's problems here. And when they come out and constantly just lie and just no, there's no issues, there's no problems. I mean, you wonder why there's no belief in the system anymore. And I mean, the mainstream news, even their ardent supporters are starting to kind of scratch their heads and go, oh, something's up.
Yeah.
Something's not right here.
We've come into a time where the average person, the access to the amount of information that the average person has now has increased the level of economic literacy amongst the general population to a level that it hasn't really ever been at before. You don't need a master's in economics to be able to understand how inflation works these days. You can watch a 15-minute YouTube video that explains it beautifully. You can wrap your head around the concept. It's fairly straightforward to understand. So the idea that you can still hide it and kind of play these shadow games on the general public doesn't kind of work the same way anymore when the average person's able to sift through the bullshit a lot better than they used to be able to.
And that's why you hear misinformation is what they're always promoting, is that, oh no, if you're not listening to us, everything else is misinformation. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to I see all sorts of even on like the right. There's lots of misinformation as well, but it's easy to spot on either side. And I always say to someone, I don't care if it's the Washington Post or it's the New York Times or if it's Jim's blog from Buffalo. If they have a link to data and a link to the source and a link to the quote or the video, I don't care. That's all I want. That's all I need. If I read an article with all these opinions and there's nothing, then that's utterly useless. It's not, it's kind of fun, I suppose, but it's utterly useless. And that's pretty much, if you listen to, half of these newscasters, it's all just op-eds. They're all just telling you that they think it's 30% of this and that. I mean, it's meaningless. So once again, people are starting to get smart and start to realize there's something else happening. There's something else going on. And you need to have the cheering squad to tell people not to panic, because that's the last thing you need is panic at the same time. But let's be honest. Let's deal with problems head on, and that's what we do here. And we want to help people. Like we're going to do fine. Like I'm absolutely convinced in our strategy. So for me, it's to yell it out to people that want to listen and realize, look around. They can see inflation. They know it's there. And I just say to people, take away all the politics stuff right now. Just ignore anything. Even if I hear some Republican go, oh, it's because of Biden. No, just leave. Who cares? Just leave it. It's not because of anything. It's happening. So what are you going to do about it? Because just going on and complaining about it does nothing. It's no benefit. How are you going to protect your family from that? How are you going to make money off it? And that's what we want to do, is set people up, regardless of, do they feel like if they did this, would it hurt Biden? Who cares? Or to me, I just go, it doesn't matter. We have no influence anyway. And to pretend when we get caught up in these things that if I get really self-righteous and angry and I post something, I've done my part. No, you haven't. No one cares. And a lot of that is distraction, so that we're arguing amongst ourselves about stuff that's silly while this real shit show is going on. Excuse my language. So, time to clear our heads, leave some of that stuff out of it and think, this is happening. There's lots more to come. Believe me. And I've told people where you can look to see the playbook on that, but it's all pretty much on track. So how are you going to set yourself up? Because, and I've heard it a number of times, and I've heard it even at the World Economic Forum, is they specifically tell people, if you are not paying attention, you're going to be left behind. Yeah. And that's a pretty bold statement. You're going to be left behind. Not only are you not going to do well, you're going to have absolutely no value to the future world. You'll be left behind. It's not even that we need to control you or anything. You're not of any value. And that is a horrifying place to be. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that's a whole interesting subtopic we could talk about. And we can send you the videos if you want to watch those. They're a little depressing from the World Economic Forum, but hey, it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it is for sure. And it just speaks to the kind of level of shift that we're going through and seeing across the board. But with that shift comes opportunities, and something like Great Bear kind of highlights the need for patience in those kind of situations as well. Like for anyone, you mentioned you have friends and people that you know that have been sitting on this since 80 cents a share. That's an incredible amount of return, but that requires an incredible amount of patience to be able to sit on that from 80 cents all the way up to $29 over the course of 3 or 4 years is a massive timeline. But it speaks to the method and the strategy behind it. And if you have that patience and commitment and understanding to the story and the management team that's in charge, you can see those returns on the other side of it.
And that's another thing that reminds me that Steve Palmer had said from Alpha North X. It's one thing finding a winner. It's another thing, especially in his job, like he is going to be judged on how much he makes. So if you sell a winner too early, people are just as pissed off at you than if you got the big win. So selling a winner it's just as difficult. Like when it hit $5, you go, oh my God, I've made a ton of money. I should take some off the table. And you go, no, I'm going to wait. There's got to be that fight between like, am I being greedy? Am I being ridiculous? But I say, listen, that's why your model is so critical, is there anything in the news releases? Is there any further data which has said this is done? It's over. Mm-hmm. And if it's no, like they're going ahead. They've got new milestones. The data is uplifting. Like, okay, well then put aside the huge gain and really focus on, okay, from here now, clean slate, what are the milestones moving forward? And that's how you can get massive wins.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I'm going to just, I'll pivot things here a little bit because I know there was a story that we wanted to talk about. We always hammer away on this fertilizer story, and we always have Brian from Marianne Phosphate on, and he's a great guest, and he makes a great case for phosphorus and the critical need for it moving forward, not just in fertilizer, but in battery metals and other avenues.
And let me just throw in there too, he's not a client. We don't get paid. So once again, I was talking about sponsorships and other channels getting paid. He's not at all. We're just a big fan of this whole fertilizer and supply chain issue because you're going to hear more about it. And he is just a depth of knowledge. So sorry, Austin, please.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. And I mean, we get along great with him as well, which is always fun. But an interesting story out of Ireland talking about how the concerns for rising fertilizer costs are going to hit food supply chains there. There's an example used from, I believe it was the Irish Creamery Milk Suppliers Association, which is based out of Limerick. And they are kind of comparing the average farmer's fertilizer bill from last year being around $21,000 to get what you need for the year. That skyrocketed up to about $50,000 this year, which if you are just your own farmer in business doing your own stuff on your own land by yourself, you're independent, that more than doubling of your fertilizer cost is massively damaging to your operation and what you're trying to do. It's a massive hindrance to put on top of you and an added stress. And certainly within Irish farming, the IFA, they're criticizing the European Commission and what they're calling a failure to act on these fertilizer prices, a failure to come up with a strategy on how to deal with this. And we're starting to see just the kind of impact that that's going to have going forward. They're expecting their fertilizer shortages and issues to last until at least April of this upcoming year. I would expect it to last even longer than that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of twofold. The issues that I see here are you could have easily seen this coming, and nobody in the European Commission especially had a plan of how to deal with it. And secondly, their plan now is, well, we're going to have to identify more sources and reduce our dependency on fertilizer rather than checking the box of saying, hey, why are we so dependent on China and Russia for our energy and our fertilizer? We should be pursuing these avenues ourselves. We should be maintaining independence rather than reducing dependency. It's an interesting approach. It kind of just shows, hey, these are the same people who missed this issue and didn't address it early enough, now have this plan that doesn't really sound like it's going to work to be able to deal with it.
Well, and it's good you mentioned the energy thing. So you're going to have basically massive energy shortages throughout all of Europe, plus now massive fertilizer food shortages all throughout Europe. We're starting to see it here as well in the US. So even when a conspiracy theorist, I hate that term because it used to mean something, it doesn't really mean anything anymore. they can look and go to, either the Agenda 2020 or 2030, or they can go to the UN or World Economic Forum. And these are key prophecies, I guess you could say, that they had.
No.
So I don't believe, as incompetent as most of these people are generally, they know what the problems are. They're letting it happen. So that's my kind of, if I put the tinfoil hat on, because it is all part of the playbook of the World Economic Forum and Davos, what they've been talking about for years. And that, it's tough because it sounds like, holy cow, like that's a big conspiracy theory. But after a while, when you see so much of this happen and it's going just chunk, and you can look back and they were telling you it's going to happen, it's hard not to think this is all part of the plan. And that's why I say, maybe I'll be wrong, but it's going to get a lot worse. So, and I'm not saying that no one likes it when someone brings the bad news, but rest assured, I'm on here and we're certainly not going to be worse off because we're paying attention and we're calling it out. And we're also, not only that, we're going to make some money off of it as well, because I don't have to like the system that they're going to want to adopt or install. But at least if I can make some money along the way, I can get myself outside of it, or whatever the solution is, or maybe it never happens, whatever. But when you've got trillions of dollars being pushed and forced into certain areas with all of these power players saying they're going to do it, once again, I tend to listen. And then you see in the news that it's happening. I mean, it's happening. All these shortages, the cyber attacks, the this, the that, it's all stuff that they talk about. And they've given a blueprint for what it's going to look like. So a lot to kind of gather there. And like I said, it's tough to talk about this because for a lot of people that don't really watch, they're not interested in news and they don't have a lot of interest in history. They just want to live their life. Yeah. It sounds like a movie and a fairy tale, but believe me, if you start digging, like, truth and reality is becoming much more stranger than fiction.
It is, for sure. The writers have done an excellent job this season.
They really have.
I give them absolute credit. And this is my favorite line from this article, so I'll just share it with you before we go. It's from the Deputy Director of the Department of Agriculture for the European Commission. And he says, Europe is recognizing that it has fundamental structural problem in our dependency on imported energy and natural resources. You don't say.
That's clear and concise.
Genius. I couldn't have told you that was going to be a problem for you guys rolling forward. But so I thought that was interesting. It highlights something that we spend a lot of time talking about.
Yes. So. And I just want to say something too, because it has nothing to do with this left-right divide, like Republican, Democrat, or whatever. It's a very far left globalist approach. That's going to be something very distinctly different than what you've ever seen before. And it's going to be authoritarian. So it doesn't mean that, oh my God, you're picking on Democrats. No. A real actual Democrat or a real liberal. No, there's nothing wrong with any of their beliefs or ideologies. This is not that. So the sooner people can once again get that left-right narrative out of their minds and thinking that if you put some other puppet in the head of wherever you're now, it's going to have almost no reaction, other than if people all start to wake up a little bit and realize what's coming. Anyways, let's leave it at that. Yeah, we're going to see what's going to happen. The 15th is coming up pretty quick here. Hopefully we can get something together. If not, we'll jump on again to our subscribers. We'll send out a link for those that want to join us. We'll have a chat about what we're looking at. But more than likely, it's only going to be for subscribers. It's not going to be a general conversation for people, as we're switching more to giving content to the people who've been with us and supported us along the way. It's we're not giving as much away to the general public as much anymore. So make sure to stay tuned, and lots going to be happening in the next few weeks.
Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're signed up to the email list on the website. There's lots of exciting stuff coming out. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. You'll be able to access the subscriber-only sections of the YouTube channel. And stay tuned, because we got a lot of exciting things in the pipeline as well.
All right. Take it easy.
Awesome. Take care, Andrew.